What is going on, guys? Root Beer is awesome here, ready to give you guys the Money in the Bank 2016 review and results. Man, what a pay-per-view we just had tonight. As I was watching the pre-show, I was still kind of excited for what we were going to see tonight. The card and paper look really good. I have actually been telling you guys that I was kind of excited for this pay-per-view, even though it didn't have a proper build-up from the past few Raws. Gotta say that last one, the Go Home show, was a decent show that actually was able to pump me up a little bit more for this pay-per-view. But as the show started, with after the tag team matches that we had, and we saw Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler, and the Divas matches, and Sheamus versus Apollo Crews. I thought that maybe the pay per view was just not gonna live up to the hype that I created myself for it. But I gotta say that overall, what I at first thought was gonna be a decent show, the main matches, AJ Styles versus John Cena, the Money in the Bank ladder match, and most importantly, the main event actually made it feel like a really good event. If you did not see Money in the Bank, I really recommend you to go back, watch it, to subscribe to the WWE Network if you have not. If it's your first time, use that free month to watch this pay-per-view. You have to, honestly. Now, going to the results, when I made the preview and predictions a few days ago that I actually uploaded yesterday, when I recorded it, the actual pre-show matches were going to be Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler and Sheamus versus Apollo Crews, but for whatever reason that was changed. Those two matches were actually on the main card, and on the pre-show we got Golden Truth versus Fandango and Tyler Breeze. That was the first match that we had on the pre-show, which obviously for the reasons that I just mentioned, I didn't actually get a preview. I mean, a prediction and a preview on that match. And as I was watching, the storyline, if you want to call it that, leading up to this match, the actual segments of what happened to Fandango's and Tyler Breeze's skin, it was kind of obvious that this was just gonna be a cheesy match, and pretty much everything that you would expect from R-Truth and Goldust. And it was obvious that both Fandango and Tyler Breeze were going to lose this match. That is what happened. This match was just full of cheese, which I hated, to be honest, because I do understand the purpose of this. I do understand that Golden Truth is pretty much just gonna be those kind of acts as a tag team. They're not gonna be taking seriously. They don't want you to take them seriously. So pretty much, Goldust finished the match, winning for his team after hitting the final cut on Fandango and covering him for the 3 count. Now, after that, we got the Lucha Dragons versus the Dudley Boys, which again was not covered in my preview and predictions because this match was not listed at that moment. So that match was a lot better than what we had at the start with Golden Truth versus Breeze and Fandango. It was nothing to be really excited about. It was a solid match, and it ended up with the Lucha Dragons winning when Sin Cara hit a Dragon Bomb just after Kalisto had hit Bubba Ray with the Salida del Sol, and Bubba Ray being the one who was covered by Sin Cara to give the Lucha Dragons the win. Now, after noticing those two were going to be the pre-show matches, I just don't know why they actually decided to move the other matches to the main card. They were not really that interesting. I thought they were just not gonna be. And the matches that we had on the pre-show, I don't think those are the kind of matches that you should have. You should have really solid matches that actually get people into subscribing to the network. To keep on watching the product, to attract them. The Lucha Dragons versus Dudley Boys was a solid match, as I said, which you could say that probably does that job. But Golden Truth versus Tyler Breeze and Fandango, for as cheesy as it was, I just don't think that's the kind of thing that you should start your pre-show with. Maybe WWE's logic is that at that moment nobody is actually watching the pre-show because now it's an hour long, but I still think that's not what you should be offering on a pay-per-view. Now, what I want to go with this is you had 2 tag team matches on the pre-show that were not the WWE Tag Team Championship match. You just started the show with a fatal 4-way WWE Tag Team Championship match, and you also had 2 different tag team matches on the pre-show. What does that tell you? I gotta say that I'm really surprised, because something like this is what we just had been hoping for, and something that we wouldn't have been able to see just a few years back. This just goes to show you that the WWE is finally investing their time on creating solid tag team wrestling. You had on this pay-per-view, counting the pre-show, in just those 3 matches, you had 8 teams fighting tonight. 8 teams. I don't even recall when was the last time the WWE had that many tag teams. And this is actually interesting because you left out another couple of teams. You could have even had the Usos mixed in this kind of thing. This just goes to show you that WWE is investing some time in the tag team division, which is something that I'm really glad they're doing. But then the main show started with Enzo and Cass versus the Bob Villains versus the Club, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson versus the New Day for the WWE Tag Team Championships. A fatal 4-way match, which in my preview and predictions, I said that I thought the New Day was going to be leaving Money in the Bank without the WWE Tag Team Championships. I actually predicted Enzo and Cass to win the match, or the Club, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. And I said that the ones who had no chance of winning the match and were actually going to be the ones taking the pinfall were going to be the Bob Villains. So I was really surprised to see the New Day win. They actually did it. And what I want to talk about this match is that this is also letting you know the direction that you should be going. The New Day had a couple of times in the ring where they were alone with Enzo and Cass. There was even a moment where Big E was alone in the ring with Big Cass. They didn't actually have any physical interaction, but the crowd was just going nuts. They wanted to see Big E take on Big Cass, and that just goes to show you that the crowd wants the New Day versus Enzo and Cass. The Club end up looking not, I would not say they did look strong, but they actually didn't take the fall, so that actually helps a little bit. But also, if you listen to the crowd, you would notice that the favorites in this match were Enzo and Cass. The crowd wants them to be the tag team champions, even though the New Day is still popular. They are still getting pops out of the crowd. They are still showing excitement. The WWE universe still reacts to them as the WWE wants them to do, but their popularity is not as strong as it is with Enzo and Cass. So I don't know what they're gonna do next. I'm not sure if they are gonna have another match for us at Battleground other than the New Day versus Enzo and Cass. I think that match, as good as it sounds, as much as the crowd is invested in on it, and as big as they want to promote SummerSlam, that should be the event in place where these two teams actually face off. But who knows what they have in store for Battleground? Maybe they should have a tournament that would determine who the New Day is going to face at SummerSlam, with that being Enzo and Cass, obviously. But this was a great match. This was a great, bout to start the pay per view with. And actually, had I had the chance to book the show, I would have started the show with this match, because this is the kind of things that you need to start the show. You need something that makes the crowd wake up, that makes the crowd interesting, that gets them hot and ready for the rest of the pay-per-view. So the New Day won. You had Gallows and Anderson hitting the Magic Killer on Aiden English, but Big E came in, and along with Kofi Kingston, they hit the midnight hour on Carl Anderson, and then they pinned Aiden English to the 3 count, and they retained the WWE Tag Team Championships. Now, the next match was Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. On the preview and predictions, I said that Baron Corbin was going to win, and I gotta tell you also that it was at that very same video where I actually let you guys know that I did not understand why this match is on pay-per-view again, why these two guys are actually facing off. And I was actually listening to the commentary, and then I heard a question being asked: would you know what would do to Baron Corbin's career if he actually defeats Dolph Ziggler tonight? Well, I know the answer to that. Nothing. What is actually Baron Corbin going to win? What is actually Baron Corbin winning out of taking out Dolph Ziggler? How does that make him even more credible, or how does that give him any credibility at all? Dolph Ziggler has been training like shit on the WWE for the past couple of years. He has been absolutely nowhere. He doesn't even have any kind of direction, and you can tell that by how much this feud has dragged on and how long they actually had him face Kevin Owens for no purpose at all, other than maybe just giving Kevin Owens some time, some airtime. So this match, that it actually made no sense. It was the worst out of this show, including also the pre-show card that we have, those 2 tag team matches. Yes, even though I said that Golden Truth versus Tyler Breeze and Vondo was cheesy as it is, I think Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler was just that boring of a match that it was even worse than that. So you had Baron Corbin win after hitting the end of days from Dolph Ziggler. And actually, the only way that Baron Corbin could have been affected by this match would have been had he lost to Dolph Ziggler. His credibility would have just flopped. But by winning this match, he actually gained nothing. Now, after that, we had the women's tag team match, which honestly I wouldn't have booked this early. I would have had it go after a couple of more matches, but this is how it is. And on the preview and predictions, I actually said that I was thinking that Charlotte and Dana Brooke would be winning the match, and I actually predicted a Natalya heel turn. As I was thinking about it, I thought that since Becky is just not gonna be facing Charlotte in the next couple of months for the WWE Women's Championship against Charlotte, and obviously neither is gonna be Natalia doing that. I thought that it would be a good idea to have both of them, go at it, just to have Natalia on TV and to keep Becky Lynch a little bit more relevant. And I know that some people actually thought that that Charlotte and Dana Brooke were gonna lose, and Charlotte was just gonna go off on Dana Brooke, and that would be setting up their feud. But I just don't think that's the way that they should be going. Dana Brooke is just starting her career on the main roster. She's just not ready to face Charlotte yet. So the way they did it, that's not how I thought it would end. I actually thought that there would be some cheap tactic to have Charlotte win with Dana Brooke. And also, I actually expected Natalia to turn on Becky Lynch while on the match. That just did not happen. But after Dana Brooke had Becky Lynch and Natalia hit off, and Charlotte hit the natural selection on Natalia and cover her for the 3 count, it was after the match that Natalia did turn on Becky Lynch, which, like I said, I predicted. So, that's just how it goes. We're now in for tomorrow's Monday Night Raw, expecting Becky Lynch to call out Natalia, or Natalia coming out to explain her actions. Now, Sheamus versus Apollo Crews was the 4th match on the card, on the main card that is, which I expected Apollo Crews to win because he had to win that match. The reason why I think Apollo Crews should have won this one is because the WWE needs to have the NXT guys coming up look strong. Why? Because they are the future of the company, and they have to let us know that they are ready to take on anyone on the main roster. So this was a really entertaining match. The feud, it was kind of odd how they did it, but also I gotta say that it was not bad. You had moments where Sheamus was looking really strong. He did look like that warrior that he is, but some others he did look like a coward, which I hate on someone like Sheamus. But in the very end, we had an interesting match that Apollo Crews won after a pinfall on Sheamus. That it's interesting because Sheamus was looking really strong. He hit, he had a move coming off the top rope, and Apollo Crews, just after he kicked out and Sheamus was complaining to the referee, Apollo Crews got a roll up on Sheamus and was actually able to win the match. You had Apollo Crews rolling out of the ring, laughing, and this is how I think everyone looked good, because Sheamus had some kind of offense, Apollo Crews had too. They both looked strong, and this is the kind of things that I always say. A roll up on a heel is just something that you don't see too often. But that doesn't mean that Apollo Crews was cheating. That doesn't mean that Apollo Crews is not a face anymore, or that Sheamus is not a heel. It's just something that happened. It's just the way that Apollo Crews used to win, and that actually made you believe that Apollo Crews just had a moment of luck, a moment of good fortune that led to Sheamus losing, and not just because Sheamus couldn't go on anymore, but more so because he was probably distracted, or whatever you want to call it. And that actually told you that Sheamus is a warrior that was not completely beaten. So Apollo Crews won. That's another prediction that I got right. Now, AJ Styles versus John Cena. I actually thought that WWE had to give AJ Styles the win. I was not completely sure that that was going to be the case, but I did expect AJ Styles to win. Now, I thought that they were going to give him the clean win. There were some people expecting, interference from the club or others. We actually saw a really good match. I knew that John Cena was going to deliver at this point. I actually said that, and I gotta say that I was right. John Cena actually delivered on a great match, which I gotta say is not 15 years in the making, but it actually was like, let's say a 10-year in the making, 5-year in the making. It was a really good match. It actually delivered, and there were some really, really, really good spots out of it. John Cena selling, the submission move that AJ Styles hit him, the calf crusher, and there were some good reversals, counters. But in the very end, after John Cena tried to hit an attitude adjustment on AJ Styles, the referee was hit by accident. The club came out. They hit the Magic Killer on John Cena. They pulled AJ Styles over. John Cena, the referee, came back, and AJ Styles got the pinfall on John Cena and won the match. I keep on saying that this is not the way that I think AJ should have won. They should have had AJ Styles win after a clutch victory, if you want to, after a roll up, whatever you want, but he should have had a clean victory over John Cena. That's not what happened, but I can see why they did this, because it's the easiest way to set up a rematch. I don't know if they're gonna put a stipulation that if the club comes out, AJ Styles is disqualified, or I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm pretty sure that this feud is just not ending right here, and this was a great, good way to keep it going. Now, the Money in the Bank ladder match: Chris Jericho versus Cesaro versus Sami Zayn versus Alberto Del Rio versus Kevin Owens versus Dean Ambrose. I think there should have been a match between AJ Styles versus John Cena, at least just one, if possible, probably two. Maybe you should have had here, after AJ Styles versus John Cena, the WWE Divas or Women's Tag Team match, and Sheamus versus Apollo Crews. But I don't know why they did that. All those two just after Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. I mean, the crowd was pretty much dead. They actually rested a lot on Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. You heard the boring chants, so there was just no reason why you had to have those two matches before AJ Styles versus John Cena, and not after it. But you had the Money in the Bank ladder match. Fortunately, the crowd was still hot. They actually were. They didn't seem tired after AJ Styles versus John Cena. They actually took a great response for the WWE Money in the Bank ladder match, which was pretty much as you would expect, full of good spots. Not the craziest spots that you would imagine, but it was actually a good handful of spots. And this match, I predicted Kevin Owens to win with a runner-up, a second option being Dean Ambrose, and I was expecting Sami Zayn to be the one that was almost going to win, and Kevin Owens would be taking him out before grabbing the briefcase. Now, that did not happen in the end, but let's say something. Kevin Owens actually did take Sami Zayn out, and as he was going to grab the briefcase, Dean Ambrose pretty much knocked him up off the ladder and took his time before finishing his climb up to the top and reaching the briefcase. Something that I gotta note here is that after this match, I don't remember the actual announcers, remembering anybody about Ambrose's promise to cash in after the main event. They pretty much just, kept on speaking about the rest of the card. They ignored that what happened at the Ambrose Asylum this past Monday on Raw. So that kind of just pretty much told you that Ambrose was gonna cash in later on. At this point, we didn't have much time left on the card on the pay-per-view, and I actually forgot that we were gonna have a US title match. But then Lana was out in the ring, and Rusev came out to defend the US title against Titus O'Neil, which I was expecting Titus O'Neil to win for whatever reason. And when he approached his family on his entrance, I pretty much thought that it was a given that Titus O'Neil was gonna win. But in the very end, after a really difficult match, I would say, because to have to follow AJ Styles versus John Cena in WWE Money in the Bank ladder match, it was a hard task for Rusev versus Titus O'Neil, but they just did the best that they could, and Rusev actually won cleanly after Titus O'Neil submitted to the Accolade. And in a typical heel fashion, Rusev just went out and called a loser to Titus O'Neil just in front of his family. I think that if they are going to keep pushing Rusev, this is just the right way to do it. I expected Titus O'Neil to win, but in the very end, the most logical thing was to have Rusev come out still the United States champion. Now, finally, guys, the main event, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. They actually had an amazing match. I think it was I'm not sure actually if AJ Styles versus John Cena or Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns was the most interesting match out of those two, but they had a great match. They had a lot of counters, and you would be amazed. You would be amazed that at the very end you would see Seth Rollins counter a spear into a pedigree, which obviously Reigns kicked out of. And at that moment, I thought, you know what, Reigns is gonna win. I actually predicted Reigns winning. I think every single one of us predicted Roman Reigns to win, but actually Seth Rollins hit another pedigree to defeat Roman Reigns cleanly for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And I actually gotta admit that I was screaming for a little bit, in excitement and enjoyment to see Seth Rollins defeat Roman Reigns cleanly, totally cleanly. But then I just realized what was gonna happen, and it actually did. Dean Ambrose cashed in his Money in the Bank contract. He came out from the back. His music hit. Seth Rollins was just waiting for him, standing up, but Ambrose came from behind, attacked him with the briefcase. He gave it to the referee, who was outside. He then went back into the ring, hit the dirty deeds for the 3 count, and to become the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and going out of Money in the Bank in Las Vegas as the champion, just as he promised he would at the Ambrose Asylum. So this is very interesting because you have a big storyline coming off this. Not only did you have the 3 members of the Shield with the title on this pay-per-view, because you had Roman Reigns coming in, you had Seth Rollins winning, but in the very end, it was Dean Ambrose who left the building as the champion. But also, it pretty much plays out into what has to be a triple threat match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Roman Reigns should have a rematch clause for losing the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But if you remember, Rollins also needs to have a rematch clause for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. How are they going to handle this? We don't know if it's going to take place on Battleground. We don't know if it's going to take place at SummerSlam, just as I told you with Enzo and Cass and the New Day. The most logical thing would be to keep that match, those 2 matches actually, for SummerSlam, but Battleground is coming up in a month, and we just don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to have a rematch on SummerSlam, both of those, or if they are just going to, do it on Battleground and expect to have something better for SummerSlam. And the interesting thing is that pretty much you just don't know who is going to be facing Dean Ambrose first. What's Dean Ambrose now going to do that he has the World Heavyweight Championship? But also, it's going to be interesting to see how long he keeps the title for. So pretty much that actual, having Rollins defeat Roman Reigns cleanly, but also having Dean Ambrose come out and cashing the Money in the Bank contract pretty much made that match even more big than it already was. You know, it was actually really entertaining to see that happen, and pretty much I am really looking forward for tomorrow's Monday Night Raw to see how this unfolds. I hope that they have a decent show. They have a lot of things that they can work to get a good summer program. So there it is, guys. This is my WWE Money in the Bank 2016 review and results. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new, subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna be working on more and more content. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Raw review, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Give me your thoughts on the comment section below, and I hope that you had a great weekend. I'll see you guys later tomorrow night after Raw for the review and results. I'll talk to you guys later.